Welcome to this week's Dissecting Design. For our video this time, we're taking a look at Resident Evil 4. Quite possibly one of my favorite games of all time, and a very important game in terms of the history of the game industry. Resident Evil 4 would go on to redefine what it meant to play action games a second time, with the original Resident Evil essentially coining what would become the standard of survival horror. Resident Evil 4, on the other hand, would go on to be the game that defined not only action horror, but kind of the third-person, behind-the-scenes viewpoint that will popularize action games for the rest of the decade. And for tonight, we're going to take a look at what the game did and how it really set a lot of those standards. And as a very interesting point, I am playing the PC port of a GameCube game with an Xbox 360 controller. So let that sink in. But for our first part, we're going to talk about kind of the foundation of the design, and then go into the game's somewhat troubled history. Alright, welcome to the game in detail here. So we're playing this again on the PC version, so it's not as wide-angled compared to what was on the GameCube. But what made Resident Evil 4 stand out, one second, there we go, was a lot of things that it would become indicative of the genre. Resident Evil 4 was the first of the Resident Evil games to switch to a dynamic behind the character or shoulder viewpoint, compared to the original Resident Evils 1 through 3 having the isometric or the static cameras. And for those of you watching this at this point, I'm sure you've seen this viewpoint many times over. But Resident Evil 4 was the game to popularize it. And I think it was the first game, although my memory of that is a little hazy. But it's very important to talk about why this is such a big deal. So the first thing is that it gives us complete view of the surroundings. With the isometric viewpoint, it meant that we weren't limited to what the camera was looking at. Here, I have complete freedom to see everything around our friend Leon. Not only that, but it allows us to aim using the in-game viewpoint a lot easier compared to an isometric. This also means that enemies can't exactly jump us from off-camera like it did in previous horror games, which meant that Capcom had to figure out other ways of scaring us. Such as that. So as we wander around here, we can look around for all manner of goodies. I believe item drops are random in Resident Evil 4, although please correct me if I'm wrong. What we're going to do, of course, is run into our first of many baddies who are going to be out to get us. Ooh. Surely nothing bad will happen as we come around this corner, right?
Excuse me, sir?
And the models actually have their mouths move. That's a huge bump from the other Resident Evils. Dun, dun, dun.
I was wondering if you might recognize a girl in this photograph?
¿Qué carajo estás haciendo aquí? ¡Lárgate, cabrón!
Sorry to have bothered you.
Now, we'll talk about what makes these guys so different from the other Resident Evils in a second. But first, we have some trouble to deal with.
I said freeze!
Kick time. And of course, there's more trouble outside. So let's fight ourselves through this part. Actually, I'm just going to skip it here. Here they come. But in our next part, we're talking about what made the Los Plagas different from the other characters, or the other enemies in the Resident Evil series. Uh-oh. Sounds like we have trouble. Well, of course, we have time to look around and see what is going on. Hello, anybody up here? And Leon doing his action hero pose here. Oh, damn you. On his head. And then kick. Kicking is truly the superior attack in this game. There we go. Not too shabby. Pick up money, which is also another first for the Resident Evil series. But I'm going to finish scoping out this area, and for our next part, we're going to talk about what made the enemy designs different compared to previous Resident Evil games. So see you all in a second. Alright, as we walk to another major part of the game, I want to talk about what was one of the first things to really set Resident Evil 4 apart from previous survival horror games, especially in the Resident Evil franchise. And that is mixing up the enemies. Anyone who knows the name Resident Evil knows that you associate zombies with Resident Evil. Slow-moving guys whose only real way to attack you is, of course, come ever so slowly to try and kill you. Resident Evil 4 mixed that up with the Las Plagas. This is a parasite that infects people, like that guy, and they will come at you using weapons and tools. So it's not about you fighting enemies who are slowly coming at you, as you can see. It's also about kicking them. But that simple change really began this elevation of Resident Evil 4 and what we see of the horror genre. It wasn't about you just fighting enemies in a very narrow area or coming very slowly at you, but fighting guys who can attack, they can dodge. They're a lot more active, which in turn also makes things a lot more scary. Or scarier, I should say. Because we're not fighting just your standard enemies who will just line up at you. And in our next part, we're going to talk about one of the most famous parts of Resident Evil 4. But as we're walking down this way, there are more mutants and less humanoid enemies in Resident Evil 4, but they will come up later. But this idea of the Las Plagas is what really separated the game from everybody else at the time. Now there is someone... Oh, there are a few guys right there. And those right there, he also tried to cover his head. Knock him to the ground. You can also attack enemies with your knife. If I can actually get it there. Now, I am playing the game on normal difficulty. You don't have hard when you start out. And of course, another famous part of Resident Evil, herbs. You also notice, so far, we have a lot more in terms of items. Besides money, we have found grenades. And there's a lot more to Resident Evil 4 as well. Oop, game decided to slow down there. Now we have our inventory, and we can combine herbs. We can also get other items as well. Which is, you know, just to make sure things are looking right and that I am recording. But in terms of the enemy situations, it really mixes things up. Oh, we got some company up there. Oh, here they come. But the typical strategy for surviving Resident Evil 4 is using a combination of headshots and, of course, kicking. Oh, surely there won't be anything bad. Uh-oh. You know, when music starts, there's trouble. And then... knife him. And of course, reload like the wind. But I'm going to cut things here, and we're going to show off what really sold Resident Evil 4 for a lot of people, including yours truly, next. Okay, for this part, we are in the first village, and we're entering what would eventually become the standard for arena battles in action horror games. Once I go in there, we're going to be assaulted by the villagers until we've either killed enough of them, or time has gone by. But back when Resident Evil 4 came out, there was nothing like this at the time for survival horror games. And of course, we're going to be going in there. Of course, that's a good sign, right? Now, there is an optimized way of playing this, which is we just stay in like an area like this and deal with them as they come. But to mix things up and to show you just what it was like back in 2000, I think it was 4, I'm going to do things a little bit more wildly. Now, notice how big of a space we have as well. Again, this was unheard of for horror games. Uh-oh, here they come. They're in the back. And they are going to be coming at me from all directions. And this is a fixed cutscene when you enter this building.
Why are these people?
And you're about to see what will become another fixture of Resident Evil 4. Chainsaw Dude.
Chainsaw.
And of course we can push things and block windows as well. Uh-oh. But notice how the enemies are designed to essentially be active. Push that right there. Now, of course, the reason why we do this is to take the shotgun. Now that we're on the roof. Oh! Damn you. Shoot in the leg. Uh-oh. They're coming. But again, notice just how much more interesting this is compared to other horror games at the time. Ooh. This looks like a job for a shotgun. He's fine, right? Uh-oh. And there's more coming. And again, this was just unheard of when the game was originally out, to see this amount of action. Surely that will help. And also, if the chainsaw guy gets me, it is a one-hit kill, so we have to be very careful. Unless you guys really want to see gore. Now, I want you also to take note of the camera. Especially about how we're trying to see and get around. Say hello to my little friend, buddy. And the kick of power. There's also little goodies all hidden around the village here. Uh-oh. Let's get out of there, shall we? Look at him go. Oh, we killed him. We should be nearing the end of this wave. this looks like a job for another grenade. Burn. You can also reload from the menu as well. Or not. Huh. Like I said, things will end. Oh, look at that. He actually ducked. Ooh. There we go. Once you've killed enough enemies or time has gone by, the event ends. But again, I hope you appreciated just how different this was. And no one else did anything like this back when Resident Evil 4 before the game came out. The fact that the enemies were dynamic enough to assault at you from different angles was a very big part of this. And while we didn't have to fight the chainsaw guy, that was another case of having escalated enemies in a horror game.
Bingo?
Thank you, Leon. And now that things are over, I can now start collecting all the lovely items, as well as the ammo that we missed. But, to wrap up this part, also that gold that I just picked up, that is for killing the chainsaw guy, whose name escapes me at the moment. But while we're going through this, Resident Evil 4 would have other sections, but I think this one was the perfect encapsulation of what made Resident Evil 4 so unique. And I remember playing this as a demo at GameStop way back in the day, and just how much I was floored by this kind of content, because there was nothing like this again. Oh, knock that ladder down, even though it doesn't really mean anything. And while this will become a bit hokey and quaint in later titles, having it in Resident Evil 4 really helped to begin this process of differentiating it from other games. Now, in our next part, we're going to talk about a little bit in terms of Resident Evil 4's troubled history. Of course, red herbs. And there's also a lot of things to find. Again, if I was playing this on hard mode, it would be very important to be collecting all the resources that we get our hands on. We went that way. And before we cut, one other thing, another major part what made Resident Evil 4 different and would also become the standard while I kill this cow, because we need to get loot as well, is the chapter format. Previous survival horror games, and again, Resident Evil 4 or Resident Evil series included, the games were built on a faux linearity, meaning that we could explore each area and such, but we were basically guided along from A to B. Now, the original Resident Evil is the most open-ended of the series. Resident Evil 4 will introduce this chapter format. As in, oh, gotta find a key there. As in, the game gives us hard stopping points from each section to kind of frame the situation and to move things along that way. But with that said, I'm going to finish exploring things here, and we will be back for our next part. Alright, welcome back. For this part, while I'm just wandering around dealing with some of those plagas, I figured this would be a good time to talk about kind of Resident Evil 4's history, and what happened during its development. Now obviously, with the first three Resident Evil games, the series certainly established itself. And with Resident Evil 4, Capcom ran into trouble trying to figure out just what they wanted it to be. Again, with Resident Evil, we have some collectibles here. Thank you. But with Resident Evil 4, Capcom went through several revisions, including games based on the original, or the first three's design, with the isometric camera and so on. And unfortunately, nothing seemed to work with what they were hoping for. What was interesting was that series creator Shinji Mikami wasn't on the original team for Resident Evil 4. And after several years of work, he was eventually brought on to kind of right a sinking ship. 1 second. There we go. And most famously, when he was brought on for Resident Evil 4, he basically threw out all the work on the game, much to the dismay of the people who were on the project already. And basically all the major things that we see in Resident Evil 4 now, the third person or over-the-shoulder camera, ooh, I'm not sure what that guy was doing, the more focus on combat, and again, just everything that we've talked about so far really came from him. And that is for better or worse, as we'll talk about in a later section. But with that said, I'm going to finish up cleaning up house here, and in our next part, we'll talk about some of the, I guess, issues that kind of came from this design, and one of the more famous additions. So, see you all then. Alright, it's time to talk about probably one of the most recognizable parts of Resident Evil 4, as well as, I think, what kind of started some of the issues people had with the series. So please welcome, probably one of the most recognizable characters of Resident Evil.
Got something that might interest you.
The Merchant. Who's become...
Got a selection of good things on...
who's become, I think, probably more recognizable in the game itself, and a major part of many, many memes on the internet. But he represents one of the biggest changes going forward in the Resident Evil series, and that was a focus on weaponry.
What are you buying?
It's not just about you getting items and such, or finding items for puzzles, it's about you getting weapons, becoming more and more powerful as you go along. You can even upgrade your weapons, making them even more powerful using money.
What are you selling?
And chances are you've heard that "what are you selling" line probably more times than we can all count at this point. So the idea is we're going to take the treasures that we found. As an interesting touch, we can actually combine them as well. Where are you, treasures? There you are. And make things even more valuable. Is the thing if we combine like this? Or I think we need to find 3 very specific gems. But
welcome.
There he is. This began this focus on what would eventually become action horror. As in, it's not just about you solving puzzles. That kind of goes on the back burner in favor of you powering yourself up and just killing a lot of things.
Thank you. What are you buying?
So I'm going to buy a rifle. Give me buy an Uzi, or a machine gun pistol, I should say. And of course a rocket launcher, because of course it's Resident Evil. But this began this focus of powering yourself up. And that is a huge difference compared to other horror games at the time.
Is that all, stranger? Is that all, stranger?
So let me get my stuff going there.
Thank you. Is that all, stranger? What are
and
you buying?
Oh wait, let me
Is
just
that
quickly
all,
buy that.
Thank you. Is that all?
Now, how are we gonna fit that thing in there? We'll eventually buy this attache case, but that will be in a little bit.
Come back anytime.
But as I was saying, Resident Evil 4 also, one other thing I didn't mention that Resident Evil 4 also kind of pioneered was an increased focus on QTEs. God of War, I think a few years beforehand, was the first to bring to the monitor, and then Resident Evil 4 was kind of the proof that it was here to stay. But this focus on action horror is a very big deal, because it changes the psychology of playing these kinds of games. It's no longer about you running and being scared. Instead, it becomes about you trying to gain the power you need to then turn things around. So if you'll excuse me. I have some sniping to do, which is not something you normally hear in a horror game. He's fine. Headshot. There's another headshot. Oh. you. And we just kicked the man's head off. That's nice. So they should be coming to get me. But this is another arena fight in Resident Evil 4. And again, this will become a major part of action horror for years to come. But for those of you watching, what do you think about action horror? Because again, it's a very polarizing element of what happened to the horror genre. Let's break this up. We really need that attache case. But like, I'm going to equip my new upgraded pistol. Of course, kick open doors. That's how you do it. Oh, look. You're fine. Second. There we go. Finished him. Oh, so that's where they came from. I was wondering how all those guys just like magically showed up and they were all running from behind. They're fine. They can walk that off. But again, notice how many enemies we've fought so far in this spotlight, or this Dissecting Design, and you can see the difference in this kind of approach. If this was one of the earlier Resident Evils, we would not be fighting all these enemies. Not only that, but we have a lot more ammo as well. So now if you'll excuse me, I have to go find some treasure. And of course, kill anybody who gets in my way. But Mikami really did want to mix things up compared to other horror games, and especially the previous Resident Evil titles. He's fine. I saw someone behind me. Better heal quickly here. And say hello to my shop. They're fine. They'll walk that off eventually, right? And hopefully we'll eventually kill all these guys. There's number one. Sometimes they run at you, other times they just walk very slow. I think you know what we're going to do with that barrel, by the way. Again, so much of Resident Evil 4 is about these arena fights. And really just downplaying the actual horror elements of the game. And this becomes more pronounced as time goes on. They're fine. Just a shot in the face. I think I can just do this. So they should eventually disperse once I get that second treasure chest. And if they don't, then I don't know what we're going to do. Of course, we can make some health if we need it. Are they following me right now? You would think they would learn their lesson, but apparently not. Jeez. They just keep saying up. I guess I'll just keep knocking them down. Oh, and by the way, if I didn't mention this game is rated M. You know, on the off chance no one got that clue by now. But the action horror really changes how things play out, and forces a player into a lot more combat than they normally would in games like this. How do I get out of here? I'm pretty sure this is an event. They're all going to just come swarming in at me. Keep shooting in the face, so why aren't you going down? There we go. Come on, buddy. Open that door. You can also shoot doors open as well. Well, I actually have lost count of the number of enemies we've killed in the span of this video. And that's kind of impressive and very scary, too. Oh, hey, buddy. He's fine. Alright. Now, I believe all we have to do is literally run through the door, and that ends the wave. Which is right over there. Thanks to that treasure map, we can see what I haven't gotten yet. And of course, our merchant friend will show up, as you can see from time to time. Oh, look at you, buddy. I hear someone coming from behind. Are you guys dead yet? I don't think he's dead, and he's just about to get up and get us. Nope. No, he's dead. But with these greater number of enemies, it eventually just ruins any semblance of horror. Despite how crazy fighting the Los Plagas are, it's very hard to feel scared when we've killed, I don't know, we're up to like 40 or 50 in this play so far. I'm just going to run right here. Use that. And the situation's over. Now, I know speedrunners have been doing things a lot more since this game has came out. Of course, gotta make room for all of our lovely weapons. But eventually, no matter how scary the enemies get, or how disturbing the situation is, when you're loaded with rifles and shotguns and a rocket launcher, how are you supposed to really feel terror at the situation? The answer is you're not. And that is kind of the failing, or what will become the major part of action horror games. I'm just going to run around and refill. But the focus on like having money and upgrading really changes the dynamic of these games. And I think the latest Resident Evil 7, correct me if I'm wrong, also allows you to upgrade your weapons and buy stuff as well. I think it was also the first game to introduce door-kicking technology as well. Of course, you have like a little quiet moment here. There's our mask. And of course, we have to figure out how to get in there. I hear footsteps. Now, the game does do a good job of giving you enough ammo. Uh-oh, I hear noise. There you are. And he always has an axe. Will increase reloading time and increase damage. Certainly helps out. So let's give these guys a warm welcome when they open up the store, and then we'll move on to our final section. Knock, knock, right? But again, we're not supposed to be feeling scared right now. Instead, it's more about trying to come up with witty phrases to deal with these guys. I like how he's juking, too. Doesn't help, unfortunately, for him. But it's a nice attempt, right? In fact, the only enemies that really do give some semblance of terror are the bosses. But even then, that's only momentary once you figure out their little tricks. Nope. I'm sure there's more guys coming to kill me as we hear that music. See treasure, right? And sorry about being dark. I think the game is just like this dark. I couldn't figure out. Someone decided to throw a grenade. Very rude. I'm sure we'll find that guy in a minute. Hello. And yes, we now have cover shooting as well in a Resident Evil game. Hey buddy, don't want any trouble. Once you get the gun's damage high enough, there's gonna be a head popping machine. Jeez. There we go. Nice juke, buddy. Not enough. There we go. But let's wrap things up in like the next minute or so. Just in case. Now we're trying to find that treasure. Find that treasure room we were just at. But those water effects too. I think this takes us out. No, it doesn't. And the reason why is I just want to show off. Ah, here we go. I think we just need to break this window. Aha. Is I just want to show the treasure combining system. So we'll come back here. Ah, nuts. This needs, I think, 3 special gems, yeah. And we'll find more of those gems as time goes on. Well, I guess not. But the reward, of course, is a whole lot of money that is then used for upgrades. And once you get enough upgrades, it really becomes hard to feel scared in this game. But with that said, let's head back to the main menu and we'll wrap things up with kind of my final thoughts. Alright, so it's time to wrap up our talk on Resident Evil 4, and as a quick aside, at the end of chapter screen, it said that I killed 47 enemies in that one chapter alone. And like I said, Resident Evil 4 at the time was deemed innovative. And I think I called it, one of my top 10 favorite games of all time after I finished it. And it has certainly left a very lasting shadow, not only on action games, but on survival horror. The use of QTEs, cover, and of course the third-person perspective camera are all major facets of the design. But with that said though, it does leave a few negatives as well. Resident Evil 4 marked the turning point for the franchise away from survival horror or combining adventure with action gameplay and being more focused purely on the action. Later series such as Dead Space, Alan Wake, even future Silent Hill games, Evil Within, and so on, all follow through with the same style, downplaying the puzzle solving in favor of more action and, of course, more QTEs. And the survival horror genre as a whole has never really, I think, fully recovered from it. And like I said in the previous section, I'm curious what you think regarding Resident Evil 4 as this turning point. Because again, there are a lot of people who love this game, but then there are a lot of people who kind of lamented what happened to horror after it. Now, in terms of examining Resident Evil 4 itself, the only real problems I think with the game are still those tank-like controls, which I believe, if I remember an interview, said they were left in to still make the player feel helpless. But it does kind of feel awkward. I will say though, the aiming feels a lot more responsive in this one compared to the Evil Within. And maybe we can someday do a comparison on that. But Resident Evil 4 is certainly an important game to study, not only for its place in history, but also kind of this turning point for the Resident Evil genre. Resident Evil franchise. And we really don't see major name franchises take this much of a turn across series. Of course, like Metal Gear Solid had its evolution, but it's not like the Metal Gear series completely, threw everything out and started from scratch when we made that evolution from 1 to 2 and so on and so forth. But Resident Evil 4, definitely a great game, and maybe if there is interest, we could do a Let's Play of it in the future. But it marks that very interesting case of the changing of the guards when it comes to horror. And again, let me know what you think in the comments below, but thank you so much for watching. If you're new, be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. Check back for daily discussions on game design here and on Game Wisdom, where we examine the art and science of games, with future Dissecting Design pieces up each Monday. But this has been Resident Evil 4, and I'm not sure if our next one will be able to top it, but definitely thanks again for watching, and I'll see you all for that next piece when it goes up. Thank you so much for watching this video. If you enjoyed it, be sure to like and subscribe to the channel. Check back around 10 Eastern for regular streaming. If you'd like to suggest games for me to cover or topics to talk about, let me know in the comments below. For a collection of my writings as well as weekly podcasts on design, check out game-wisdom.com. To support the Game Wisdom Patreon, you can find us on there on patreon.com/gwbicer. $1 will get you into our private Discord channel where we talk game topics and more. $5 will get you voting privileges for any major event, including the Saturday Night Grab Bag, Patreon-funded goals, and more. Thanks again for watching, and I hope you enjoy more videos here on the Game Wisdom YouTube channel.